Hi everyone, thanks for joining me today for another episode of Dashboard Fridays. I'm Adam from SquaredUp, and today I am talking to you about a dashboard that we use in our demo lab to show off our integration with Azure Monitor. This is similar in style to the VM Updates dashboard and the VM Metrics dashboard that we did with Cameron Fuller. This one focuses specifically on the VM Insights feature of Azure Monitor. It basically is enhanced monitoring for your Azure VMs that uses an agent inside your VM guests. So unlike Azure Monitor, which is great for showing you sort of platform level metrics, this one can show you things like disk free space, memory consumed. It's far more sort of classic server monitoring territory. It even now has monitors on those things, so you can be alerted when you hit certain free space amounts or memory or CPU, that kind of stuff. So I will bring up the dashboard and we can jump into sort of what it does and how. The version that you're seeing here, this is the one currently available at time of recording on Community Answers, but I think I'll try and get a couple of updates posted to it, and I'll run through those updates in this video. Before I go into the dashboard, I'll just quickly show you the source of this data. So we have a logs workspace. It has a bunch of solutions enabled, things like Windows Updates. It's got Azure Sentinel turned on. It collects a ton of data. With VM Insights, it's also able to probe a bit deeper into our virtual machines running in Azure as well. So this is the Insights blade that you'll see under monitoring when you're looking at any VM. If you aren't using this yet, you'll just get an enable button. If you're not already connecting that VM to a workspace, it'll ask you to connect it to a workspace first. But once it's enabled, it will start gathering those sort of classic inside-out monitoring that you'd expect with something like with SCOM or SolarWinds. So we're seeing things like CPU utilization. That's nothing new in Azure Monitor. It is collecting it from inside the guest though, so sometimes you could consider it maybe more accurate. Things like available memory, logical disk used percentage, again, is like a guest only metric. Azure Monitor doesn't collect that by default because it's not looking inside your operating system, but Insights can get things like this for you. They have also brought in a simplified view of the sort of service map feature, just showing traffic flow through the VM. And this health preview, still in preview, is what I mentioned, the monitors for certain critical things, so disk-free space monitors, memory monitors, CPU monitors. So if you've turned this on for a bunch of VMs and you're collecting a ton of extra data into your logs workspace, this dashboard can help you sort of surface a summary of that. So in this case, we're seeing updates by computer. That's just generally added for information alongside this, alongside these other metrics that actually comes from another solution. But it makes the dashboard look nice. We've got disk space from logs. Again, this comes from this new solution. CPU performance, we're calculating CPU variance and looking at things like memory utilization. You can see these lines are all pretty busy though. There's a lot of computers connected to this particular workspace. So I'll show you at the end of this video just how you can use a perspective in our SCOM product or Azure product to surface the data on an individual machine level. But yeah, we'll just quickly make a couple of amendments that I've wanted to make to this dashboard for a while. So in our demo environment where we built this dashboard, there's 5 or 6 VMs connected, and as a donut, this actually looked pretty nice. But what I'm going to do in this case, if I just grab the query out of here, and I'm just going to turn this into a bar chart. So it's pretty simple, just drop the query in. In this case, I want to, it should just return me the data. I need to choose the provider first, Log Analytics. So it's given me back my data, pretty good. I think it's a bit more readable in this format instead of trying to render that tiny little donut. I will change the data range to fit to data from 0 instead of it trying to fit it into a block going from 0 to 100. And let's turn on some color just to make it pretty. What's probably useful in this though is to add some sorting. So I just do that in the query. So this is just standard syntax. So I'm just going to do sort by, and then the count column. That's fine. So that's now my donut updated into a bar, which I think is a bit more useful in this case. I also want to add a tile showing those monitors as little status blocks so I can see the status of them. It's probably what I'm going to do here wouldn't work if you have thousands and thousands of monitors. It's going to look a bit crazy. I'll do this just for just to sort of illustrate how to do it, and I'll show you a couple of different ways that you could show the data as well. So if we just quickly jump into Azure and we'll go for a status icons tile. It's Log Analytics and it wants a query, of course. So here's one I prepared earlier. So all this query is doing, when you turn on that, the monitoring for those particular components in Azure Monitor, it puts all that data into this table called health state change event. So all this query is doing is it's pulling back the latest entry in the table for each monitor resource ID. So in other words, it will only get the latest values. That's all I care about in this case. The name of the computer, I think, is pretty important to be able to see in a tile like this. Unfortunately, in Azure, it's stored as part of a big long string, starting off with your subscription ID, resource group name, type of device. There's all sorts of stuff in it. So all these next two lines do is split that resource ID on the slash in their URN, and then I just basically pick out the eighth part of the array, which is always going to be the computer name. So this should universally work. I'm then just going to project a bunch of columns out. So I want the timestamp, I want the resource name that I've just created, I want the monitor name, and I want the current monitor state. And with our blocks tile, it will automatically work for you if you give it columns called name and state. So I'm just doing name equals and state equals, just so it can automatically pick them out. So there we go. We've got some status blocks for my monitors. That's fine. Let me just change the orientation just so they're a bit easier to see. The label I think is fine. I just want to see the monitor name. I could customize it. I could drop in anything else into here. So there's my new calculated computer name, for example. Maybe just put that with a little dash at the end, or put it in brackets, whatever you want to do. In this case, I'm just going to leave it though as the monitor name. I'm going to use the sublabel to fix that problem. So into my sublabel, I'm just going to drop the resource name, and I'm also going to drop the timestamp as well. But because the timestamp is just a big long ISO string, I'm going to use a little custom labeling trick built into SquaredUp called timeago. And if I pass the timestamp into timeago, what it'll do is it'll change it to something relative to now. So if I just zoom in so you can see it a bit easier, you can see here in my blocks, I've now got the name of the monitor, and then as the sublabel, the computer that collected it, and a relative timestamp. So instead of saying whatever it was an hour ago, it will just say the word an hour ago, 2 hours ago, 5 minutes ago. It makes it a bit easier to read and see when these things were being evaluated. So yeah, pretty simple way to put some monitoring on the dashboard. In this case, these are all the monitors. I might want to add, say, like a little filter to that where, you know, the monitor state's not equal to healthy, you know, that kind of thing. So it will only return monitors that have gone red. That's probably a better way to make use of this data. In an overview, you probably don't care about all the healthy monitors. You just want to see the ones that have gone wrong. But if you do want to summarize it all, again, let's just go and use a donut tile. There'll only ever be 3 states: healthy, warning, or critical. So if we just grab the donut, choose the provider, drop in the query, and in this case, it's doing a similar thing. It's getting the latest value by the monitor resource ID, so the latest of each particular monitor, and then just summarizing the count by their state, and the donut will just work immediately for that. All it wants is that count and a label. So it's got the word healthy and it's got a number. And if I just go into display, let's maybe change that to one of the health color palettes, and it will make it go green. So yeah, that's pretty simple. A few little tweaks made pretty quickly on the fly. If you do want to surface quite a lot of monitors, there's a few different view styles for this. You can change it around to just a little line of blocks, and it will just fill up as more come in. But yeah, pretty simple dashboard. Just using the power of Custo queries just to pull data from logs workspaces, target multiple workspaces in certain conditions as well. Just to quickly show you the drill down in SCOM. So yeah, not very useful being able to see all this. Maybe it's fine for outliers. Maybe you want to tweak the query to only show you the ones that are the lowest disk space or that kind of thing. If I just look at this particular server, this is monitored by SCOM, but it is an Azure VM. So I'm seeing my Windows Server metrics coming from SCOM, but if I jump over to this perspective I've made called VM Insights, it's using all the same queries that we just saw, but I'm passing in just a little conditional filter. So if I look at the query, I'm just saying where computer name starts with, and then the NetBIOS computer name as SCOM knows it. So in this case, I'm querying for, int DC03, or in this case, I'm querying for int DC04. So I've built this perspective once. I've put these queries in, I've parameterized them to take the computer name, and now I'm able to get quite a deep dive view of the data just for this specific computer. And I've only had to build this once, and it will just work for all of my Azure VMs. But yeah, being able to do sort of cool stuff, like in this case, we're calculating standard deviation, so minimum and maximum against the actual CPU. So you can see, there are little spikes all the way along, but they are kind of expected. This one is an outlier. Maybe it's worth looking into sort of why that's happened. Utilization percentage was high. Maybe you want to correlate that with network read. There's again a big spike at roughly the same time. A big spike on disk writes at the same time. Being able to correlate this stuff is really neat, and these perspectives are kind of useful. So yeah, if you've got our SCOM edition or Azure edition, you can easily build these perspectives. But yeah, as always, if you need any help getting started with this dashboard, head over to community.squaredup.com. You can get the dashboard itself from dashboards.squaredup.com or squaredup.com/dashboard gallery. You can, if you need any help, just post anything on Community Answers. There is a ton of stuff about Kusto on there, so if you're just generally browsing for Kusto information, definitely check out Community Answers. But yeah, that's it for today. Thank you very much for joining me, and see you again. Thanks.